Nobody should have been in that room. The ranch house had stood empty for years, its curtains stiff with dust, its floorboards moaning only to the wind. Thomas Evers never opened that back bedroom anymore. He hadn't since the night his wife died. But when the storm came down from the plains, rattling shutters and pushing rain through the gaps, Thomas went to check. He pushed the swollen door aside, reached for the curtain, and froze. A voice whispered out of the dark, hoarse as broken glass. "Hold me tight, please." His hand jolted away from the fabric. For a moment he thought he'd gone mad, that grief had finally hollowed his mind clean. But then the curtain shifted from the inside. A pale arm reached through, trembling, streaked with dirt and dried blood. Thomas staggered back, his heart hammered against his ribs. The room smelled of damp cloth and sweat, the unmistakable odor of someone clinging to life. He knew every inch of this house. There should have been nothing behind that curtain but old timber and shadow. The arm twitched again, fingers curled as if begging for his hand. Thomas's first instinct was to walk away, to bar the door, saddle his horse, and ride until the storm swallowed his tracks. Because he knew, deep down, that whoever had crawled into his home was no neighbor, no friend. The world outside had grown meaner, sharper. Men carried grudges heavier than rifles. A stranger in his house could only mean trouble. But trouble had already found him. He leaned forward slowly, his boots whispering across the floorboards. His lantern cast long, shivering shadows across the walls. With a quick jerk, he pulled the curtain back, and nearly dropped the light. Lying there on the bed, curled like some wounded animal, was a girl no older than 15. Her hair was matted with mud. Her dress clung to her in tatters. Dark bruises marbled her neck and arms. Her lips cracked open again, whispering the same words he'd already heard. "Hold me, please." Thomas's throat tightened. He wanted to speak, to ask who she was, but the sound caught. Instead, he stood over her, caught between instinct and dread. The storm outside clawed at the windows. The ranch creaked as though holding its breath, and Thomas realized whatever had chased this girl here might not be far behind. Thomas had buried enough strangers to know when a body was about to give out. The girl's breaths were shallow, each one catching like her lungs were snagged on barbed wire. He saw the fever in her eyes, the way her hands trembled, as though clutching the last thread of strength. He should have gone for the sheriff. That was the law. A wounded stranger in his house, worse yet, a girl this young, would bring questions he had no answers for. Folks in town whispered enough about him already. The widower who kept to himself, who drank alone, who carried a grief he never laid down. If they found her here, in his dead wife's old bed, no explanation would clear his name. Thomas turned away, pressing his palm to the doorframe. "Not my fight," he muttered. His voice sounded weak even to himself. But the girl's whisper hooked him again. "Please, don't leave me." He closed his eyes. He remembered the night his own son had coughed blood into a rag, how he had begged the doctor to ride faster. He remembered the silence after, the small grave dug beneath the cottonwoods. The memory cut deeper than any outlaw's knife. Thomas's jaw clenched. He poured water from the basin into a tin cup, knelt, and held it to her lips. She drank greedily, drops running down her chin. Then she sagged back, eyes fluttering shut. "Who did this to you?" he asked, his voice low, almost afraid of the answer. Her cracked lips moved. He leaned close. One word slipped out, barely audible. "Hunters." Thomas stiffened. Not trappers, not men chasing game. The way she said it, he knew she meant men who hunted people. A horse snorted outside, too close to be the storm's imagination. Thomas's heart seized. He blew out the lantern in an instant, plunging the room into shadow. He crept to the window, pulling the curtain just enough to see. Through sheets of rain, torchlight bobbed along the ridge. 2 riders, maybe more, searching. The girl stirred weakly. "Don't let them take me." Thomas gripped the window ledge until his knuckles ached. He'd sworn he wouldn't get tangled in anyone else's war. Not again. But if he turned her out, he might as well pull the trigger himself. The torches dipped lower, drawing closer to his ranch. The storm howled louder, as if the night itself demanded a choice. The riders didn't knock. They didn't have to. The sound of boots crunching over wet gravel carried straight through the ranch house walls. Then came the scrape of a saddle cinch being tightened, the hollow ring of a rifle butt tapping against a stirrup. These weren't Kuhans caught in the storm. They were hunters, just like the girl said. Thomas pressed his back against the wall, shotgun in hand. His thumb found the iron safety, though he knew firing would turn his ranch into a coffin. A voice called out, low and steady, meant to travel through rain. "Evening to the man of the house. Might be you've seen something blowing through these parts. A girl, small, dark hair, wears trouble like a second skin. We're looking to bring her back where she belongs." The girl's fingers clutched his sleeve, desperate. She shook her head violently, eyes wide with terror. Thomas didn't answer. The silence stretched. Outside, a rider spat in the mud. Another voice, sharper. "Don't play dumb, rancher. We tracked her prints clean through your north pasture. You hand her over. We're gone. You don't. Then maybe we see what else you're hiding in there." The storm slammed against the windows, rattling the panes like the house itself was nervous. Thomas swallowed hard. He thought of his neighbors, of the way men in town already crossed the street, rather than meet his eyes. If word spread that he had harbored a fugitive girl, whoever she really was, it wouldn't matter if he was innocent or guilty. Folks were starving for someone to blame. The girl whispered again, barely more than breath. "They'll kill me." The hunters shifted outside, impatient. One horse stamped, iron shoe ringing against stone. Then a torch flared brighter, shadows dancing up the side of the ranch like hungry flames. Thomas eased toward the door, each floorboard creaking in betrayal. He stopped short of the latch, shotgun raised, chest heaving. He could end it here. Open the door, hand her over, go back to the silence that had been his only company for years. Or stand between her and the men outside and let the night decide how he died. A sharp knock rattled the door, wood splintering under the force. "Last chance, old man." The girl's hand slid into his, trembling but certain. And in the hush before the next knock, Thomas realized, whatever choice he made now, there was no turning back. Thomas had faced rifles before. He'd buried men who thought themselves quicker than he was. But this trembling hand in his, felt heavier than any trigger. The girl's palm was fever hot, her grip so fragile he feared it might break. And still, she held on, as if clinging to the last scrap of mercy left in the world. "Why me?" Thomas whispered. Not to her, not to anyone, just to the empty rafters above. He could have been silent, could have hardened himself like stone, but the question cracked out anyway. Her lips moved. He leaned closer. "Because you don't look away," she rasped. Something in him jolted. He remembered. At his boy's eyes the day he'd been carried off by fever, pleading for help his father couldn't give. And his wife, pale in her final hours, whispering that same haunting plea. "Don't look away." A pounding shook the door again, rougher now. "We're not patient men," a hunter barked. "Open up, or we'll open it for you." Thomas steadied his breath. He turned to the girl. "If I keep you here, it won't be easy. Might not even be possible." She didn't answer. Instead, with a trembling effort, she pushed something into his hand. A small silver locket, tarnished from dirt and time. He flicked it open. Inside was a faded sketch of a family. 2 adults, 3 children. One of them, unmistakably her. "My people," she murmured. "Gone. They took them first." Her eyes brimmed with a pain older than her years. Thomas shut the locket, his jaw hardening. The house groaned in the wind. He felt the weight of the choice digging into his chest. Leave her to the hunters and save himself, or defy them, and risk the kind of violence that never stopped at one life. He brushed her hair gently from her face, a gesture so small it startled him. He hadn't touched another soul with kindness in years. "If they want you," he said, voice gravel low, "they'll have to step over me." Outside, a rifle bolt snapped into place. The night held its breath. For the first time since she'd crawled into his life, the girl smiled, weak, broken, but real. And in that fragile moment of connection, Thomas felt something he hadn't in years. The sting of purpose, sharp as a knife, deep as regret. The hunters shifted again outside, readying for the storm they were about to unleash. The door didn't give way at once. It shuddered, groaned, then burst inward under the force of a boot. Rain and torchlight spilled into the room. 2 hunters stepped across the threshold, slick coats dripping, rifles raised. Thomas stood in their path, shotgun leveled. The girl was behind him on the bed, too weak to stand, but her eyes locked on him like he was the last post holding the world upright. "Step aside, old man," the taller hunter said. His face was leathered with scars, his eyes pale and merciless. "We'll take her, and you'll live to finish your whiskey." Thomas's voice came out steady, though his hands shook. "She stays." The shorter one laughed, a sound without humor. "She ain't yours to keep. She's marked. Belongs to the men who paid us. Belongs. The word dug under Thomas's skin. He thought of his wife, the way death had claimed her. He thought of his boy, stolen by sickness. And now they wanted to claim this girl like she was cattle? No, he said. Just one word, but it carried the weight of graves. The taller hunter raised his rifle, slow, deliberate, like a man savoring the moment. Then you'll join her! Thunder cracked. Not from the storm, from the shotgun. The blast lit the room in white. The taller hunter dropped, a hole in his chest. The shorter dove for cover, firing wildly. Glass shattered, wood splintered. The girl screamed. Thomas chambered another shell, crouched low, and fired again. The second hunter crumpled against the doorway, rifle clattering uselessly to the floor. For a moment, the only sound was the storm screaming through broken windows. Thomas lowered the shotgun, chest heaving. He turned back. The girl was still there, clutching the locket to her chest, eyes wide, not with fear, but something else. Trust. He knelt beside her, resting a hand gently on her shoulder. "You're safe," he said, though he knew safety was a fragile word on the frontier. Outside, the storm began to ease. The torches guttered out in the rain, leaving only darkness and the smell of gunpowder. Days later, when Thomas rode into town with the girl bundled on his wagon seat, folks whispered. Some looked at him with suspicion, others with quiet respect. He didn't answer any questions. He didn't need to. The girl leaned against him, fragile but breathing. And as the prairie stretched endless before them, Thomas felt a weight lift, a purpose reborn in the ashes of violence. Sometimes redemption doesn't come with prayer or peace. Sometimes it comes when a stranger takes your hand and whispers, "Hold me tight."